lights because but
Yeah.
whatever. This is what
Yeah, it's fine.
this is what I'm gonna look like right now.
So,
Uh,
for everyone watching, we're Dice Coffee, and this is the first episode of our newly launched podcast, Latte Night. And we are so humbled and thankful that Mr. Luis Carazo agreed to be our guest. Thank you so much. You might know him from his role as El Diablo on the season finale of SWAT, or
yeah.
I believe your most recent work that I know of is of Hearts and Castles. That amazing short film. I would like to ask you to talk about that soon. But I think
wow, great, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe what most people would know you for, among our community, is Nines Rodriguez on LA by Night. I know that's what Jay knows you for. So, Louis, my name's Nigel. The gentleman over here is TJ, and the girl over here is Jay. Welcome.
Hi, nice to meet you guys. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you for having me. I'm super flattered and happy to be here.
We're excited to have you. So given that we are no problem. Given that we are primarily a tabletop channel, I'd like to ask you to talk about your early experiences. Like, what was your first game, and how did it change you? How did it affect you as a person now?
Okay, so I have a lot to say on this, so please interrupt me if you feel like I've gone on or to course correct the way I'm talking about this.
Please go ahead.
So the first tabletop role-playing game that I played was Dungeons and Dragons. I remember being maybe 4 years old when my cousin would play. So I have some cousins that are a lot older than I am, and I vaguely remember sometimes staying the night at their house. I was very young, but my cousin would play with his friends, and I was fascinated. So that was really my first experience. Sometimes they would let me play, but I was so little that I wasn't really playing. They would just let me roll the dice or something. But I've always had a fascination with that kind of fantasy setting with witchcraft and wizardry and knights. As a kid, I just wanted to be a knight. I just wanted to wield the sword and slay dragons. So then in high school, a group of friends were playing, and they invited me to join. And that was my first time joining a Dungeons and Dragons campaign where I was, I think, old enough and mature enough to understand the game.
Yeah.
And it really, I feel like it's changed my life in so many ways. And I can talk a lot about that campaign with that group of friends. But that would take too long. And then I went off to college and stopped playing for a little while. And then after college, I played with Matt Mercer, which I think a lot of people in the tabletop community know from Critical Role. So before Critical Role happened, I was playing a Dungeons and Dragons campaign with Matt and with Taliesin and other friends of ours. And then Marisha ended up joining the game because when we were playing, Matt and Marisha they weren't dating. They may have known each other. But then Marisha joined the game maybe 2 years in. So we played for 3 years, and she joined in maybe about halfway through. Mm-hmm. And I joined because I think, as everybody knows, you guys all know who Matt Mercer is. I think the tabletop community does. Okay, good. So everyone knows what I'm talking about. I went to acting school with the wife of a close friend of Matt Mercer's, Zach, this close friend of Matt. Zach and Matt were putting together this Dungeons and Dragons campaign, and they were co-dungeon masters. It was the only time I've ever experienced two DMs, two people running the game at the same time. So this was 10 years ago that we started playing this campaign, and we played it for maybe 3 years. And shortly after that, or towards the end of that, is when Matt and his the group of voice actors, they started Critical Role. That has been, I guess, kind of in a nutshell, the bullet points of my journey, and some of the people that I came into contact with. I don't remember what the other part of the question was.
No, it's like I believe Jay wanted to ask you something actually.
Yes, please.
Yeah. I would like to ask, as a player, what is the most memorable run you've ever had that's just stuck in your memory and you can never forget?
Oh, okay. There's so many. Okay, so I have to give a little bit of context,
No
at
problem.
least about myself, in order, I guess, so that you guys understand what about storytelling is exciting for me, and what elements of that I think come alive for me in tabletop role playing games. So, I mean, I'm an actor. I've been a tabletop role player for my whole life, and that parallels what I enjoy about acting. I love storytelling. I like deeply dramatic, the moments of story that make us. It's as if we're looking in the mirror about some of the most human parts of ourselves, and especially in how we struggle and the ways that we struggle. So, for me, there have been so many moments in tabletop role-playing games where they've really tapped into that. For me right now, since a lot of people know me as Nines, by the way, the reason why I am Nines is because of Taliesin. Because when they were looking for Nines Rodriguez, and that a lot of people from Critical Role have made appearances on LA by Night. So when they were looking to cast Nines Rodriguez, Taliesin was the person that said he said he had the perfect person in mind. So series of interviews and meetings, and then I became Nines Rodriguez on LA by Night, mainly because Taliesin is who made the connection between us. So for Nines, there's a lot that I think is really like compelling and exciting because of just wondering what is it like to be, a kindred, someone who's been in this kind of existence for so long, and what kind of like suffering and wisdom and like what does that do to you, and how does it change the way you see yourself and how you might see the world? And some of the really compelling moments in that are like trying to hold on to like hope, and trying to if you're caught up, I don't want to spoil anything, but there's this thing there's the calling that happens to a lot of kindred, and being able to explore a little bit of to what extent might Nines be experiencing something like that, or if he's not experiencing it, he's witnessed it in others, and what is that experience like for him? So I tend to ramble, so again, interrupt
it's fine.
me, please. So it's that kind of stuff. I mean, like, I really it's such a gift to be able to, through your imagination, explore some of the deepest parts of what it means to be human. And that there's moments of that for Nines. I don't know if people have watched Endymion's Gate, a couple of the other role-playing shows that I've been on. But like in Endymion's Gate, it's a different system, and it takes place in space. And one of the things that the character that I played in that struggled with was a kind of guilt, the burden of being ex-military, making a decision on the battlefield that basically cost me my best friend's life. Like that kind of drama, I don't know. Maybe I'm kind of masochistic, but I love doing like a deep dive in those kinds of high stakes dramatic relationships. And what I love, and this will be and then I'll let you guys talk more. What I love about this, like, community, the tabletop role-playing community, is because to me, it's like a direct invitation for other people, like you guys, because I've been on TV and I've been in movies, but like when someone watches me on a TV show, they don't get to like be a part of that world that night with their own characters in that world. And what I love about storytelling in tabletop role-playing games is, one, it's just as compelling as the best movies I've seen. And it has the potential for, I think, Academy Award winning moments. And then I think more importantly is that it's a direct invitation to the audience to, put me like in your world, you know what I mean? Like we get to encounter each other in a way. Like I love hearing about the characters that other people are playing, because I think it's powerful. I think everybody should be a hero or the anti-hero in a story and experience like fraught relationships through storytelling. You learn so much about yourself and it generates so much empathy. It's obviously I'm really passionate about it. So
we
now
absolutely
I'm going to
love.
not talk for a second.
No, it's fine. We absolutely love the experience. It's funny you should mention masochism, because the three of us, along with some other players, we play almost every day different games, and the running joke is that I emotionally torture them every day. It's just because I'm always running the
And we
game.
they
enjoy
keep
every
coming
single
back.
bit of it.
Yep, you keep coming back.
You know what's gonna
Emotional
happen.
masochist.
You know what's gonna happen, and you know
Yeah.
it's gonna hurt, but you're gonna go back anyway. And you're absolutely right. There's so many things that happen in tabletop that are worthy of nominations, and just from watching Critical Role or even LA by Night, and I have watched Endymion's Gate, and there are a lot of powerful scenes there. And if you just take away for a second the fact it's a game and try to really listen to these characters, there's a lot of emotional scenes that would warrant an award or something. Actually, that was going to lead into what I want to know next, is that how has, if at all, tabletop affected you as an actor? Like, has it improved your ability, or was it the other way around? When you went to acting school, you became a better tabletop player, but how did you improve in that aspect of getting into character and role play?
I know. Thank you for that question, because I don't know if I think people have asked me questions that dance around that, but I don't think it's been asked exactly like that. And so thank you. That's, I think each one has made me better at the other. What tabletop role playing provides me that definitely informs and enhances my acting is the this kind of surrender to what's happening in the moment. You cannot, as a player character, choreograph and map out what you're going to experience, because it's impossible. You have to surrender to what's happening in the moment, to what the game master is putting you through and giving you, and what the other players are throwing at you as well. So that ability to, like in acting, they call it like to yes and to say yes to what's happening and not deny it, but just to embrace it is definitely a muscle that gets worked intensely in role-playing games. But also because you have to use your imagination. It's all theater of the mind, really. So the more you enhance your imagination and you see what's happening, in a way that impacts you through your imagination, that absolutely enhances. And I mean, it's essential to an actor's work. And I absolutely have to approach an acting job, a traditional acting job, with that same kind of that same high level of one of the things that I think my actor sensibilities, and every actor does it differently. It's such a unique thing. It's such a unique thing from actor to actor. The way that they approach it is going to be very unique. But for me, my freedom in my play and in my acting comes from a deep sense of truth in what the character is experiencing and what the character's point of view is. And I know what it's like when I feel like I get the character, and it doesn't, and the character stops feeling like a character and starts feeling like another version of me, like an alternate reality, another like parallel universe version of me, as if life happened to me differently. Like Nines Rodriguez is that. I'm very different from Nines in how and personality. Like, I mean, you know, I don't think Nines gets this animated. and, but in personality, I'm very different from Nines. And I am, you know, but my job as an actor is to hook into how they see the world and the events and the experiences that they've gone through that lead to who they might be today. So I do a lot of immersion in my acting work. I do a lot of, some people call it, I mean, I don't think it's method acting, because if I'm playing a homeless person, I'm not going to go out in the world and be homeless for 2 months to get an understanding of it. Playing Nines Rodriguez, I don't go around and make people call me Nines Rodriguez and, like, you know, be him out in the world. Although that would be really fun.
That would be
Maybe
badass.
I should do that.
Yeah.
I might try that. And so, but I mean, I do find freedom in that moment when I feel like the character stops being a character, and I feel like I have a strong sense of ownership. And that requires me to imagine experiences that the character may have experienced, but that I didn't. You know, obviously they're not coming from my personal life. So, I'm not sure if that answers the question.
Oh no,
exactly.
it was.
But,
Oh no, that was good. That was good.
I would like to add to that, because you're telling about playing your character as another version of you. Do you have any advice for the new players on how they can be in character when they are starting out in role-playing games? Just a simple advice that they can follow.
So, what I think new players are too hard on themselves, first of all. So one of my mantras is, don't get it right, just get it going. There's no such thing as a mistake. It's just an opportunity for you to listen more. So I think a lot of times new players become self-conscious, and they feel like they might make a mistake in their interpretation of the character. And my advice is, you haven't. Like, let the mistake be a part of the experience. You don't have to call cut on yourself. You don't have to apologize for anything that comes out. Because your character can be multifaceted and can be contradictory and can, you know, recall things differently. So even if a lot of the things that I think young players perceive as mistakes are just the same kind of things that we do in real life. So be nice to yourself. Don't beat yourself up if you feel like you've made a mistake. Chances are it's not even a mistake. Just roll along with it. The other thing, I mean, I could probably go on and give a workshop on this.
That would be great.
I don't think it's that different from what I encounter with young actors in any role. You know, you don't have to know everything about your character. You can know enough of what matters to them. You know, what drives, what attachments they have. You know, you can a few of those, because I do know that some people they will create like 500 pages of character backstory, and I think that first of all, I think that's fantastic, because eventually that can become a book. So I would never tell someone not to do that if they feel inspired to do it. Do I think that So if that's liberating to someone, then by all means go. But if there's someone who feels like they must do that and they're burdened by this need to do that, I would say you just need to keep it simple. We are creating a story when you're creating your character. You don't have to write their entire backstory from the day that they were born, because we as human beings don't even remember. Our memories don't even have that. I can't remember every day of my entire life, but what we do remember are moments that have left impact. I can remember something from 5 years ago, as I believe as clear as if it happened yesterday. But I think a lot of science tells us that our memories are actually not even factually true, that we kind of embellish them and they kind of change and degrade over the course of time. But that the fact that I can recall an event, and I believe that I recall it factually accurate, and it holds me, it has impact. All you really need is a couple of those, and the rest is gonna unfold as you discover it yourself with the people that you're gaming with. If there's more questions that you guys have about that, I'm happy to talk about it for as long as we can.
I think TJ has a tangent question, actually. TJ.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because you're telling earlier that your personality is really different from Nine's. When we're creating a character, sometimes most of our personality bleeds out to the character that we play. I mean, what personality of you bleeds out on, for example, Nine's when you're playing?
I think, well, I mean, there definitely are. So I'm going to say something that's going to sound contradictory, because I know that Nines and I see the world very differently. And I don't carry around a kind of weight that I think Nines does, and there's a lot of contradictories, and how Nines would never wants to lead, he doesn't want to be in the spotlight of the movement, and he has this aversion and this because he understands how power can corrupt you, and so there are differences in how in the kind of thing. It's sort of our values and the things that matter to us and the things that hold our attention. But he still is moving through me, like this is my voice, this is my body, so there's going to be similarities in a lot of ways. But I think we're talking about personality. Geez, what do I think about? I don't know if we have the same sense of humor. I feel like sometimes I'm like, I just want to smack him because he gets very intense and very serious, and I just want to shake him a little bit. I do think that we're similar in this. I think that there's a kind of optimism and hope that Nines still manages to have, mixed in with a lot of other complicated stuff, that I feel like there's a version of that I have in me, and there is a kind of intensity that I'm pretty sure that I don't know, like, what rate is this, like, rated? Am I, what
No, go ahead.
Okay.
No filters.
Go ahead.
Like, I think that there is a part of me that I would like to think that is similar to Nines. They're like, don't fuck with me, kind of like part of him. I hope I have something like that in me. But yeah, I think that there's something. Geez, that's really hard because. But I think after all this, rambling, I feel like there is a seriousness and willingness in nines to have. I said seriousness and Siri. Thought I was talking to Siri. That's funny.
You're not part of this series. Get out.
I know you're not. You're not in this. This is mind your own business. I think there's like a seriousness and a willingness to go to like deep, vulnerable places. Like he is not. I don't think Nines is afraid to have the heart to heart that you need to have in order for something transformative to happen in the world or in the person that he's talking to. And I hope I have that in me. And I think I aspire to have that in me more in my day to day. But even if it doesn't manifest in me like it definitely does, it's something that I think I have a little bit of. Please.
I promise we just have a couple more of this, and then I want to move on to something, but I believe Jay had a question for you.
Yeah, I believe like what we love most about Nines is that he has a lot of wisdom, especially when he's talking with Annabelle or talking with Victor. Your conversations tend to go really deep, and it's really inspiring. Personally, that's why I really love Nines as a character. I would like to ask,
Thank you.
where do you get that level of insight in playing Nines that you would share it to other kindred, so to say? There's a lot of experience in Nines that just stuns me personally. I would like to know where it comes from.
Okay, I've actually worked on this. This is some of the homework that I've done for the role. And so I'll start with where I feel like I can relate to that. So I'm in my 30s, and which is, there's plenty of people that I meet like, oh, you're a baby, you're just in your 30s. Hey, but I'm in my 30s, and so like that's a grown ass man. That's like I'm a grown up, right? And when I talk to like people that are a lot younger, 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds, I feel like I've lived enough to be able to give them some kind of wisdom, and because I'm just that much older now. I've met plenty of 50-year-olds that act like they're children, and I've met plenty of 22-year-olds that are like very wise beyond their years. But now I just kind of take that recognition and just imagine it beyond what we can ever really know, because Nines has been on the planet longer than a human can live. And so he has witnessed things that no one we know in existence could ever understand. That gives me an incredible freedom to be able to create what that might mean for me as Nines. And so one of the things that I kind of have in my mind when I'm looking at the coterie is just how young they are. They're just babies. And all the things that they, no matter how much I talk to them about it, there's just no way they're going to understand what I'm really saying until they've lived, or unlived, until they've gone through it. So there's something about that. Like if you just tell yourself, like just some of those thoughts, it starts to activate something. Like you just kind of daydream a little bit from this, like, I've lived longer than I ever could have. I've been in existence longer than I ever would have been able to if I stayed human. And I just allow myself to imagine what those eyes have seen. In a similar way, when I go to in California up the coast, there's redwoods, ancient redwoods that are like 2,000 years old. and I've seen them, and I've imagined. I remember encountering these giant trees, and I thought to myself, all the things you have witnessed that my tiny little human brain could never understand. So, in the same way that, in storytellers have imagined, faster than light travel and, different space civilizations, the same way that we've been able to imagine things that are far beyond reality, I imagine what that kind of wisdom is like from this perspective. And although I don't know, but just imagining it and wondering it and telling myself that I know so much more. I've existed longer than they could have ever, like 5 times, if not more, something, depending on who I'm talking. And that helps me. Just does something. It makes me feel heavy and slow. So this kind of goes back to something we were talking about earlier. Just never underestimate the power of your imagination. And sometimes you'll tap into things that words are never going to be to express. But I just look at them and I think, wow, all the things you can't possibly yet know, and that the suffering and the wisdom, joy that so many different levels and flavors of it can't possibly know because you're just a baby. I don't know. That point of view.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I know that you're trying to find some similarities between you and Nines, and when I'm watching Nines, I always see him like a cool uncle type of person.
Yeah.
I feel like that in your life, just giving advice on the young ones type of thing.
I've been told that. People have said that to me. People have messaged me that, like a cool uncle. I think that's that. I mean, I would rather be the cool uncle than the crazy uncle or the weird uncle. So, because everyone knows that uncle's out there too.
Yep.
Yeah.
I want to move a bit because you talked about your acting experience, how this has helped you, and you've also talked about how different you are from Nines, and yet you pull off the characters so naturally. Everything comes across as if these are actual people having an actual conversation. And then I did say, and I want to talk about your latest work that I know of, Hearts and Castles. And for those who are not aware, Lewis plays Angel, and it is a very masterful rendition of vulnerability and emotions. And I wanted to ask you if there was something you were drawing on to bring out that kind of performance from yourself, because it came across as so genuine. Because people have told that story before of heartbreak and finding someone and comfort. It's an overdone story, but it was done. But your co-star and the director did it so well that it came across as so naturally. I want to know if you were drawing from anywhere to deliver that kind of performance and character.
Wow. I think that that particular story, you're right, it is so universal and in some ways, just been done in so many different versions and so many different manifestations. And I think one of the reasons why that story gets told again and again and again is because of it's so universal. And I haven't personally gone through what the character in that story that I play is speaking to, but I understand heartbreak, and I understand feeling lost. I understand coming out of that and finding a newer, deeper version of yourself, and then also being in a position when you've been away from that, and then you encounter someone who's still in the midst of it, and having been outside of that, I can look at the person that's going through it right now and be able to provide some kind of reassurance and comfort. So it really is. It didn't feel unfamiliar to me, even though the details of it, I haven't gone through that. My father and I never had conversations like that. So, but I think at its core, such a universal human thing.
Yeah.
And to me, I remind myself that no matter what I'm doing, in the end, I'm just a person talking to another person. And when I kind of surrender to it, it just gets easier. So I'm not, and the director short film, they were really about just speak from the heart, just tell the truth, and it was really fulfilling because it just didn't feel like acting.
Yeah, I mean, it felt real. I actually watched it when you first tweeted about it. It's like, I need to find a copy of this. I need to find where I can stream it, and then you put out a few tweets of where it can be watched, and it just felt so real that, I mean, I can name a lot of movies with a Hollywood budget that didn't come close to that kind of realism in the acting perspective.
Wow,
it was really
thank you.
good. No, absolutely. So just kind of tangent off that. What is it let's bring it back to tabletops here. What do you prefer? Because in acting, you're given the role. You're given, this is the guy and this is his story and you're going to portray it. That's your job. When it comes to tabletop, obviously you might as well be comfortable with that as well. Like, you're given a character like Nines who's already fleshed out. But do you find more enjoyment in, let's say, being part of a tabletop group and creating the character yourself? Or do you find it more enjoyable to be given a character and try to imagine his life from his eyes? Like, what's your preference when you're going to play in a tabletop? Would you prefer that there's this character that's fleshed out for you and you want to take his eyes on the matter? Or do you prefer making your own?
I think it depends. It's a lot of work to make your own. And if I've already done it a couple of times, then it just becomes that much harder to have to keep doing it. But it's a different kind of work when you're handed a character, because then you have to, then you really have to dig deeply so that this character that was handed to you becomes believable. Sometimes it's easier to make it believable when you're the person that's creating that character. You still have to do, so I have a character in a Dungeons and Dragons campaign that I have right now who is a paladin. And he's one of my favorite characters. And one of his, attachments that we're talking about was, so I'm going to try to, long story short this. So he's essentially searching for his daughter. His daughter was kidnapped, and he was looking for, this nefarious character came into the city and was actually pretending to be a well-meaning person. And then children started to go missing, and one of the children that went missing was my daughter. And so he's also, and I like to try to play true to the character's alignment, but with some wiggle room, because I feel like if you just try to play, like a lawful good character or a neutral good character, I think that you still can play things that are beyond that box, because again, people are much more complex. So there are things that I would never do. He's more of a hero than I would ever be. He is in one. I actually posted a Reddit article of something on Reddit about this particular moment in this campaign. He's basically the kind of person that will, if our wizard fell and we were in a hotel room, fire, and he has got the hero strain, and so he's the kind of person that runs through the fire, picks up the wizard in our group, will pick up his friend and leap through the window to save her. And I wouldn't do that. I would find another solution to that problem. So even when it's a character that I am creating, there still is a shift. There still is a different, way of seeing the world, a kind of paradigm shift that I have to, that I still even have to work on, so that I'm portraying that honestly. But like, I don't know. I like both, but creating your own character in the way that I like to play and immerse myself in it, if I'm doing it again and again, it can be a thing. And there's something really, really cool about somebody handing you a character and that they've envisioned, and they're giving it to you so that you can interpret it and give it life. There's something super exciting about that. So my answer to your question is I enjoy both.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It's funny actually that you mentioned being a paladin, because Jay over here is our resident goody two shoes paladin of the party.
Oh,
And
boy.
Screw up paladin, actually.
Screw up paladin. And just a background, her character used to be this awful murderer because he thought he was in a dream world that didn't exist, and that he thought whatever he does has no consequences, and if he died, he'd just wake up. And then the truth,
Wow.
as the DM, I said, here's the truth. Over time, I just gave him subtle hints until, here's the truth. This is real. You killed your family. You killed all of those people. What are you gonna do? It's like,
So
went through a
bad.
period of revelation and self-reflection and became a paladin of a new goddess. And the thing with Jay is that she struggles between her as a person and what she wants to do in the game. It's like, it would be so much easier if I could just kill him, but no, I have to redeem him because of redemption. I have to give him a chance. And then,
Right.
but the character demands this because the character needs it. The character needs to believe in redemption because he needs to be redeemed. I guess the
Yes.
question is, where do you also find enjoyment in playing the character when he's doing something that you just don't want to do? It's like, this is what your character would do. This is how you wrote him, and this is what he's going to do. You know that, but
Yeah, you're stuck with
you,
it.
as a person, just don't want to do it. But you have to, because
You make me
that's
sound so bad.
you are. But
So here,
yeah, go.
I cannot even tell you how much I just described as a role player and as an actor too. So my question is this: haven't we all at some point had that kind of inner struggle when we know where we maybe perhaps forget a part of ourselves? I've done things like I like to think of myself as like I resolve conflicts really well, and I'm a very reasonable and calm person, but I also lose my temper sometimes, and sometimes I'll say things I don't mean, and then I'll like have it's a moment that I like of surprise where I think, wow, what brought that out in me? That's not I want to be a better person than that. You know what I mean? Like that inner struggle kind of a thing. And the opposite too. There's sometimes where I will handle a situation better than I even thought I could. And that even surprises, that's even surprising to me. And then I'm like kind of proud. Wow, I'm so, I surprised myself. So, and I say that because what if this paladin, you could have that inner struggle. You could have that inner struggle of, I should do this, but I really want to do that. What does it say about me? And that could be like really amazing grounds for role playing, because I think sometimes, and this is in the Dungeons and Dragons system, sometimes it wants you to categorize and map out these character aspects, but I would want to invite all tabletop role players to give yourselves the freedom to shatter that, because you could even your character can go through character shift. You can start off as a lawful good paladin, but then because life happens to you, your alignment changes because you go through character growth or character degradation depending on the journey of the character. But even if you don't, I think a lawful good paladin that struggles to stay virtuous and has a voice. So instead of, what if instead of saying, oh, this is the player, this is me, Reese, that's like, I don't fucking want to do that. Instead of saying that, what if it's the paladin that's like, I don't want to do that, but I must. Or what if they decide for the first time that they actually don't? What if for the first time they don't do the honorable, redemptive thing? What if they do something different? And what does that say about the journey of the character? So I really truly believe in our gaming and I strive for this in my acting as well. There's no such things as mistakes. They're just opportunities to uncover something, to hear something new, to listen to something deeper than what our preconceptions might have been. Yeah, but I relate to that struggle because that's my path.
It's just really difficult, but I do get what you're saying.
So yeah, let it be difficult so instead of it being difficult for Jay, difficult the character, like that you can synthesize those things, which I think is pretty exciting.
That is an excellent point, and that's something that most players really should figure out, is that it's all right that there's a dissonance, and you can bring that dissonance into the game because it makes a more fleshed out character, because it's more believable when the character is confused and conflicted and not sure of his choices, because we're confused and conflicted and not sure. Most of us, day by day, live our lives randomly. Like, we make split decisions that we don't even realize we're doing, and we fuck up a lot. We make our mistakes.
Yep.
I think TJ wanted to ask about that, actually, about mistakes.
Yeah, because I just started playing Dungeons and Dragons around 6 months ago, and our DM that tries to torture us
antagonistic DM
point to show us the consequences of the actions that we do, and just tell us, oh, mistakes are okay.
And then the whole town hates you now.
Hates us. But I would like to ask you, what are your memorable mistakes in games, and what are the consequences it caused?
You read a lot.
Man. Jeez, mistakes. Oh my gosh.
I mean, you played under Matt Mercer. There must have been consequences to some things that you have done.
Oh, huge. So, the character that I had in Matt Mercer's campaign actually died. And it was... okay, so there was an encounter... we have... I don't remember this right. We were in the Underdark, and we had to cross like a lake or something. The only way across was by making a bargain with this like being. Well, the being ended up being a luck eater. So I'm the person that stepped forward and said, okay, I will make this bargain with you on behalf of you. So, yeah, I mean, this is not, I guess it's not, well, I'll tell this story and then I'm not sure if I'm answering that, because it's a mistake that happened in the story for the characters. Well, anyway, so then flash forward, we're overwhelmed by these whites, and they took down 2 of our companions, and then they take me, and I'm the party's healer. They take me down, and then on my saving throw, I rolled a natural 20, which in Dungeons and Dragons, if you roll a natural 20 in your saving throw, you regain 1 hit point conscious. Well, in that moment, I did that, and then the party was like, gosh, he's up, save the party with. Except that's when the Lucky Eater came back to claim what I offered. And so they stole that natural 20, and it became an automatic failure. And then not only did my character die, but 2 other characters. So it's not a mistake that I made playing the character, but it was heartbreaking and
a consequence of your action.
Absolutely, consequences. And then there was played other characters. Some of us, I ended up playing another important character to my first character, and then the story continued in that vein. But I don't know if I've ever felt like I a mistake in playing the character. If anything, I may have misremembered something or gotten some terminology wrong, but those are so, like, I don't even pay attention. Like that happens. I've made a mistake where I forgot an ability.
Yes.
And
Yeah, right.
that's bad. But especially if you have a high level paladin, it's like I have all these like auras and all this stuff.
It's funny you mentioned that because both of these guys here, these players are both part warlock. Like they have a few levels in warlock for the hex and the eldritch blast. And the one thing that it's a running joke in our games is that you're a bad warlock because you keep forgetting to hex first. Because that's what the point of hex is the damage.
So, and I would my solution always story. I remember when I forgot, and it became a really interesting role playing moment. I forgot an ability that would have really helped us a couple of times in battle. And to me, there's 2 ways to respond to that. One, I could be the player that gets mad at myself because I feel like I did something wrong. Or I could incorporate that into the story. I'm not being myself right now because I'm, for this particular character, this is the same paladin for his daughter. I'm sorry. I'm not going to be at my best 100% of the time because my daughter is missing. And just like a fighter, just like someone athlete, they will forget things that they have trained really hard to be able to do. A fighter, like a boxer will misstep and forget exactly the footwork or something like that. Because their head may not be in the game properly. So I always find any mistakes that I make as a player, it's like a gift, an accidental gift that I can then into the character's personal struggles. I just forgot because my head is somewhere else. And then I get to beat myself up in the game as the character.
Beating yourself up as a player.
And that's much more fun. So I think that's the one thing is I forget. Sometimes I'll be like, I just joined another where they were like, we're going to start at level 14. A brand new class that I've never played before. And I'm going to forget. I'm going to forget a lot of what I can do.
A lot of abilities.
Yeah. So, but I think it can always be incorporated into the story. Like you don't have to. One of the things that I think robs people, gamers, and I would say actors of joy that's available to us and what we do is the way that they punish themselves for not being some kind of idea of perfect, which is just a preconception. It's some idea that they have of that, so the less you do that, the more you recognize it's supposed to be imperfect, because what makes you compelling in any story are the imperfections and the mistakes. There's nothing more human than that.
More relatable.
So exactly. Exactly.
Just a point of order for everyone watching, because we do stream Call of Cthulhu, and for my players who we do play every day, every time, thanks you, Luis, because every time someone calls me a sadist or a DM that likes to torture people, I will always turn back to the fact that Matt Mercer pulled out a luck eater in the Underdark on you, and that
Yes.
is one of the worst things you could possibly do to a player. It's like, a luck eater, really?
Mhm.
It's like, but
And the perfect moment that he came and
yeah,
robbed
exactly.
the party. Oh
There
my
was-
god.
Like, some part of him must have been hoping that you guys were going to die there so he could pull that out and just screw you over.
I
um,
mean,
so terrible.
amazing.
we're almost
Amazing.
we're almost
It was
out of
him
time.
and oh yes. Oh,
Go ahead,
wow.
go
I
ahead.
mean, wow. That was Matt Mercer, and I should say the co-DM of that campaign, Zach Hanks, and Matt and Zach became friends because they were voice actors. They did voice acting for video games and stuff like that. So I was the only person at the table voice actor. I think everybody else at that table was in voice acting in some capacity, but I think I did voice acting in one video game once, and it's a very different experience.
So since we're almost out of time, there's just one last question I would like for you to answer, and then I believe TJ has a special request for you at the end of this video. But
All right.
this one question is, there are a lot of people who get introduced to Dungeons & Dragons through Critical Role, and obviously Matt Mercer, Laura Bailey, all those people, all the cast, are exceptionally talented because they are professionals. And when you hear Liam O'Brien speaking, or Laura Bailey, or Travis Willingham, or even Matt Mercer and his NPCs, you imagine voices that bring these characters to life. But often people are so caught up in thinking that I can't play D&D if I can't do voices. I've heard that a few times. Or I can't do D&D that way. What's your advice to people like that? Like, how do you just, if you could tell all the newbie players about how to bring life to a character with their own skin, with their own voice, that they don't have to do these weird voices to give their character life, that they can just be themselves and still give it life. What's your advice for doing that? Giving it life.
It is absolutely unimportant whether you put a voice on it. In fact, I don't do it at all. It's not a priority for me at all to distinguish the characters that I play through their voice. But I come from a very different place. Like, for me, my way into something honest is internal, and not external. And if there is a character change, my priority isn't to externalize it through a voice or a mannerism. My way to convey that is to understand that what matters to them is different from what matters to me. And the beliefs that they carry around about themselves is going to create a change in character. But I start from me, and I'm completely unapologetic about it. I will not do a voice. I will not do a voice for the sake of doing a voice. So because it just is not going to be fun for me, and it's going to feel phony.
Yeah.
So that's all to say that you have the right to do it your own way, and you don't have to try to. It'd be like me as an actor imitating George Clooney or like any other, like copying how Brad Pitt sounds and then trying to do a Brad Pitt impersonation when it's supposed to be coming from me.
Yeah.
You're not doing an impersonation. So I if I could just completely relieve everybody that's listening to this, you are relieved of the pressure to perform it or do any kind of mannerisms, voices. You don't have to do any of that. Storytelling comes from the heart. It doesn't come from anything else. You do it your own way. And when it's compelling and exciting to you, then that's how you know you're doing it right. So don't do that.
That is a great way to end this, but I think TJ has an even better way.
Yeah, since you mentioned George Clooney, Brad Pitt, and some people Can you teach me one go-to pickup line that I can
Ah!
Practice on our
Pickup line.
friend here.
yeah, you can
What?
Practice on our friend
Pickup
here.
line.
You
Jay,
don't
pay
need to say the
attention.
pickup line.
Jay, pay attention.
Jay.
It's just
Jay,
like
don't
it's
be
just,
rude.
you
Pay
know,
attention.
You don't even need to.
you just gotta, you know. I mean, I've never actually used pickup lines, but I've definitely, you know, worked some magic a little bit. You know, it's on the look. You know, you just gotta let the look linger for a little while, and I'd say, you know, I'm so embarrassed. Um,
I totally get it.
say, you know, just say, hey, I don't know, that's my pickup line.
Hey?
Uh, what's your sign? No, don't do that.
What's your sign?
So bad.
I mean,
I don't know. I don't know if I've ever used a pickup line. I think you know what it is? I'm not afraid of rejection. That's the thing. And if I'm genuinely interested, then I will walk up to someone and I'll, you know, what's going on with you? You know, I don't know. It's like I just start talking.
It also helps when you've got one of the manliest beards recognizable, and you can pull off a tank top
This
on
thing-
screen.
This
So-
isn't even real. Rip. Just kidding.
Oh my
God, that would have been
Oh
awesome.
my God, no.
Just like pull it
That
off.
would have been awesome. It's like, oh my god, it's a lie. Like, so, Louis, thank you again so much for giving us a bit of your time to talk about this, to give advice to new players. We loved having you. It was a pleasure. And I'm leaving all your links to all your pages on below in the
Yes.
description. And amazing, everyone. If you haven't seen LA by Night, or even better, Endymion's Gate, which is something I actually really loved. I loved that system. I want to learn it actually.
I love it too. I would love for people to watch and
Yeah,
really happy with a lot of moments in that.
I'm gonna leave the playlist of YouTube over here for people to watch. It is great. Watch it, and if you can manage to find yourself a copy or place to stream, I cannot recommend more of Hearts and Castles. It was amazing. And Louis, thank you again for showing up. We appreciate it, and have a great rest of your day.
Can I say one?
Yes,
Can I say two things?
sure.
First, I just want to thank everybody, and I want to thank you guys
Sorry,
for the passion and the
sorry, you cut off a
you
bit.
guys have. Oh, yeah, internet. I just want to say thank you, and I want to commend you guys and the passion that you guys have, and I'm so flattered, and I'm so excited to hear your stories and your campaigns. People who are, if anyone, if I'm to anybody, I love interacting with people on social media. I love hearing the stories that you're telling. And I'll drop a link, since, you know, I want to drop a link to some clips of my TV stuff. Send
yes,
it to
please.
you, Nigel, so that people can see what I did on SWAT and
Yes.
the two things that I did
Yes,
like
please.
this season.
If it's a link, I'll put in the
Very
description.
different from Nines.
I watched the ending of
See it.
SWAT. That was so different. That was vastly different. So thank you again. I will put the links once you've handed to me. We really appreciate your time, and have a great rest of your day for everyone watching. Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you.